Crime story from the Minute newspaper. He's managing editor, and I also have with me here Abdurrahman Kamara, of course, a seasoned journalist always, and he's always been coming to front page. You're welcome this morning.
Thank you very much.
And a media consultant too.
Exactly. Good to see you, man. I always like the suit. You're always suited.
It's a copycat of what you do.
I'm sorry. How has it been, man?
It has been good.
Okay.
It has been okay, comfortably, and just in my little corner, observing things and trying to see how best I can make myself befitting to the society.
So the Sierra Leone and the England experience has been awesome.
Yes, of course. It's quite some different atmosphere, of course. But I'm okay now because I'm getting myself, acclimatized with the weather now.
All right. And it seems as if there is still an issue here with the erratic electricity supply. How are you guys coping?
Very painful, very, very painful, you know. For the past 1 year now, I've been out of the country and I've been enjoying that kind of electricity. The day I came back, you know, I met power cuts, you know, so the electricity difficulties in Sierra Leone you know, when we talk about electricity, it's a composite entity. So sometimes when you touch it, you know, all other...
Is it a political commodity?
Well, it must not be a political commodity because it has to be a national commodity.
Abdurrahman, so how it seems as if we are still struggling with this erratic electricity supply.
Yeah, we're struggling with electricity, adequate electricity supply. But the reason being,
but the minister was saying the other day that we have gotten an increase, at least 1% increase of supply.
I'm coming from another angle.
Mm-hmm.
I took my time off to really understand the way the sector operates. Human activities conspire against the effort of EDSA over time.
Okay.
And I think for those that owe EDSA the huge amount of money is supposed to pay, corporate entities, government institutions, I call on them. In this forum, I use this platform to say, you are obligated to pay EDSA. If you really want EDSA to give you the required services, pay their bills, pay your electricity bill and ensure that EDSA function adequately. Otherwise, the subvention they got from Ministry of Finance is not enough to actually upkeep the expected, you know, running of the electricity. All
right, I think there are lots to talk about for today's edition of Front Page. Let's just look at some of the stories that we have on the front pages of newspapers. And for obvious reasons, we start with the AYV newspaper. It's going for 4 millions. Grab a copy and let's make some money for the empire. On the front page, it says, to deliver on the development mandate, our world chairman announces new executive. And I can see the face of the president of Sludge here, the outgoing president. And then Sierra Leone, over 170,000 pupils take 2025 NPSC exam. Yenga saga, Sierra Leone Army make strategic deployments. You can get all these stories from the AYV newspaper. From there, we move on to Awoko. On the front page, it says, government sends fact-finding delegation to Yenga amid escalating tensions at Sierra Leone Guinea border. EcoBank rewards loyal customers in exciting raffle draw. There can be no unity if we are not honest with ourselves. Here is a quotation here from Honorable Usman Timbo, declares for APC flag bearership position. You can get all these stories from Awoko newspaper. I beg your pardon. From there, we move on to A to Z newspaper. On the front page, it says U.S. deepens partnership with RSLAF. VP Jallo shares Sierra Leone's vaccination success story. All these stories you can get from A to Z newspaper. From there, we move on to Standard Times. It says, over mass exodus from Yenga, Major retired Sengus breaks silence. And Pavifots, Tomabone irrigation impresses MPs. Funding delays spark concern. You can get all these stories from Standard Times newspaper. From there, we'll move on to exclusive. On the front page, it says president-elect or not, Samura Kamara to clarify. NRA recovers billions of loans. Auslav responds to Yenga. You can get all these stories from the exclusive. From there, we'll move on to the Nature newspaper. On the front page, it says the attention of the police and military, presidential order to demolish houses of Greenbelt areas. All these stories you can get from the Nature. And the last that we can take is from the Independent Observer newspaper. It says, Mr. President, can we talk? Part 150, echoes of betrayal at Makona Yenga's unfinished story. You can get all these stories from Independent Observer newspaper. Gentlemen, we get the ball rolling with our newspaper. On the front page, it says government sends fact-finding delegation to Yenga amid escalating tensions at Sierra Leone, Guinea border. Just a background, according to this newspaper, and of course we have gotten other stories as well here speaking on the same matter. Let's just look at the very fact that Sierra Leone army has got their presence at Sukuma village near Yenga. There is a disruption of Sierra Leone troops to their long-standing place in Sukuma by the Guinean army earlier. And of course, this issue has not been solved. I mean, I was able to listen to an audio from Dr. Sylvia Olayinka Blyden. She spoke a lot. She said the genesis of this issue was in 1994. And it appears as if there was a compromise there for these military troops to settle at that particular axis. And hitherto, we have still not been able to remove them from there. They are still there. We have gone through a lot of diplomatic dialogue, but it seems as if it's failing. Is it failing, Abdurrahman?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. I think as a nation, we must be careful the way we discuss this Yenga issue, in as much as we are very much concerned, but equally so, the explosive nature by which some citizens are taking these, perhaps not knowing the military implication that underscore the effort in all of these. What I will not go down into history. Yes, the timing of these since 1994, during the heat of the rebel war. Yenga had been an entry port where you have an easy access from Yenga to Guinea. And Guinea, at a point, assisted Sierra Leone during the 11-year rebel war. And they thought it fits that one of the very many ways to actually thwart the ambition of the marauding rebels was to station at Yenga because of the proximity from Yenga to Guinea. Ever since, Guinea had gotten a kind of a garrison at Yenga. But this was not in the understanding of Sierra Leone that they've got a long-term ambition of wanting to entrench themselves in these.
Well, was it?
There have been a lot of diplomatic overtures for Guinea to understand that this parcel of land belongs to Sierra Leone and not Guinea. You understand? But they are persistent. It's a situation where Sierra Leone has insisted of occupying or reoccupy that particular land, and on the flip side, Guinea insisted of staying there because of the proximity from Yenga to Guinea.
All right, Abdurrahman, very quickly, please. Sierra Leone, of course, the major intent from the very beginning was for the Guinean soldiers to assist the war. Yes, that was the reason they stayed there from the very onset. And I think, according to research, it was between the MPRC and the Guinean military in 1994. If you listen to Dr. Sylvia Olayinka's Blyden's audio as well, she spoke lengthily on those instances. Was it a rational idea from the onset for these guys to stay there and help us with the war?
Well, we got during the war. I don't know how old were you then when the war ravaged this country. But I've got to
I was born at that time.
Okay. So the point here is, it's not a question of rationality.
Okay.
It's a question of where you give what a drowning man will hold at anything you give to him. Sierra Leone was almost defeated during the 11-year rebel war. They were attacking from all angles. And as I said, if you look at the geography of Yenga, I've been to Yenga. If you look at the geography of Yenga, it's an entry port. The proximity between Yenga to Guinea is so short that even if you want to invade Guinea, that could be a logical, jurisdiction that you may use to go into Guinea. So they have been there. That is a Guinean troop being there, assisting Sierra Leone, was to thwart the ambition of the marauding rebels, not to infiltrate and draw deep into the country.
Was it a good idea?
It was a good idea then.
Okay.
But the question is, does that give a leverage for Guinea to actually get themselves entrenched as we see?
But there was no agreement for them. They just went there and stayed. And what was there any agreement?
It was a common understanding between those pursuing the war then, the NPRC government.
Was it not a lapse at that moment?
Well, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't. If there was, then in anything else, then Guinea would have stayed off from that particular point. And the rebel will continue to march deep into Kailam, coming to Kelema, coming to Bo, then 91, and Feta. So this is where the assistance is getting all of these. Are we burdening ourselves into history? I'm not sure. What is of interest now? What is the current circumstances, prevailing circumstances that has actually sparked into all of these? When it all started, the Guinean troops confined themselves just in Yenga. Okay. And Yenga, what divided Yenga, the town of Yenga to Guinea, is the Makona River. Okay. This Makona River, and now they've crossed the river, and they are now deep into Yenga and gone beyond. And the latest confrontation is their attempt to take to overrun the Sukuba village, where we have a garrison of military officers, military personnel. They are stationed there. Had it not been for the sound resistance of the Israeli army, then they would have occupied Sukuba village as we speak now. But they are there. The Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces stationed there with a garrison at Sukuba village as we speak.
Quickly, as we move to Ibrahim Sori, what is much more peculiar about that particular place? Is it rich in mineral resources, or it has some kind of military strength?
Well, this is something many people tend to phantom around. All I know is it's a farming-dominated jurisdiction. Okay. People, cattle rearers, farming for others, they will tell you there is a deposit of mineral in that Makona River. Okay. When he was a foreign minister then, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Professor David Francis, I had an opportunity to interview him when he was, helping in the diplomatic overtures. There was this suggestion by Africa, the African Union, to have a bridge that links Guinea and Sierra Leone through the Makona River. Okay. That is just a way of de-escalating the conflicts in there, but that never materialized. And I was part of a team, an African Union assessment team that went to Yenga, where we met at that time the Brigadier General Operation and Plans, now General Bokari, was the brigade commander in Kelema. We were there. We got a huge reception. At that time, we crossed the Makona River onto the Guinean side. All right. You will surprise you to know that there were many Sierra Leoneans, people, inhabitants from Kailau. They joined the military in Guinea. So, of recent now, what is triggering or spurring these people to actually move and make a kind of retrenchment in that particular place? I don't understand.
Let's go back to history. I mean, it's good for us to go back to history so that we can be able to identify the problem properly before we fix it. And now, I mean, according to history, President Kabak, for instance, and President Lansana Conte had a joint declaration, and it was very sacrosanct that the place belongs to Sierra Leone, Ibrahim Sori. But then, at a specific instance, according to Dr. Blyden's audio, President Kabak had to inform the Guinean government at that time that, hey, you really have to leave this place now, in as much as the war, I mean, has now come to an end and that kind of thing. And then there was also a kind of good talks or negotiation from the Guinean government. Okay, let's just stay here for some time. as time goes on, we will leave here. Could you just give us some time? And also, let's make a kind of documentation that this place belongs to you. So, from that particular instance, did you sense any compromise from President Kabal? Was it at that point that he would not have really accepted for the Guineans to stay at that place?
Well, thank you. I go by your statement. You said there was a joint or a collective declaration for Yenga. And now, if we are saying again, Pakaba compromise, then to some extent, it's somehow contradictory. Now, what
there
I'm
was
saying,
a specific instance where President Kabal will have said, okay, you guys don't stay. But he accepted for them to stay for a while at the place based on negotiation between he and the government of Guinea at that point.
These are normal things when it comes to diplomatic relationship and diplomatic discussions.
Was it more diplomatic at that time?
Well, there is no way you can handle such a dispute without diplomacy. That, of course, you think about diplomacy. You are not talking about, you cannot handle it with violence or war, because these are two sisters' countries. Now, what we're saying is the fact that historically, we all know that Yenga belongs to Sierra Leone. The pressure of the Guineans for territorial extension or acquisition of such a land, for them to say Yenga belongs to Guinea, is a non-starter. It is irrefutable fact that Yenga belongs to Sierra Leone. Yes, of course, over 2 decades now, we have been in this back and forth of demilitarizing the Yenga, and Yenga to be given back to Sierra Leone.
And there was a demilitarization agreement in the days of President Nkrumah.
During Ernest Nkrumah, I think it was demilitarized.
Of course. And there was an agreement. That was what he succeeded at that time.
Yes, of course, there was. So now, it comes back to the question to say, it was demilitarized. Why now it has been remilitarized again? Okay. Now, what we are saying
so
is...
So why? Do you sense any lapse in that particular instance?
Yeah, well, you see, let me tell you something. If you failed to actually negotiate with a democratic government, it is equally impossible for you to negotiate with a junta government. Mark you, this is a government now at present as we are speaking. Guinea is under interregnum. This is a junta government. It's not a democratic government as we are speaking. Therefore, they are not listening to the ECOWAS, they are not listening to regional bodies, sub-regional bodies, and maybe international communities, because they know they are junta government, and international communities and all the regional bodies have suspended or restricted Guinea government in certain ways. So therefore, in reciprocity, if regional bodies have suspended or restricted the government in such a way, do you think they will listen to those regional bodies?
And there is an instance here, somebody said at Sukuma village, when the Sierra Leone army went there, the Guinean soldiers, the troops had to fire shots in the air. And it created a kind of panic for the residents around that particular axis.
Yeah, they did fire shots. Of course, we saw and we heard about that, and even interviews was done by Umo Fofana on BBC, evidence out of the fact that they fired, the Guinean soldiers fired. That is a manifestation that they are establishing intent that they are not ready to give away Yenga.
So are we going to succeed with the negotiation mechanism that we have been using since 1994?
Well, one thing I want to say is, I trust the military of Sierra Leone.
Okay.
I trust the police, and I trust few government authorities. But the fact is, people don't want to listen to those facts. And this I will say, it is impossible for us to succeed with a junta government to demilitarize Yenga. It is impossible now. That can only be done when there is a democratic government in Guinea. Because there and then, they are subjected to regional bodies, sub-regional bodies, and other international organizations that Guinea has subscribed to, okay, and those treaties that actually establish directive, principles, and decisions. But for now, it is It is virtually impossible. The only thing is to manage the situation.
Okay.
Our response.
I just want to also mention that point that you've mentioned. Of course, according to research, this became a campaign issue, for the APC. And it's at a specific instance, the APC took steps to resolve the issue. But the APC also faced a military takeover in Guinea at some point in time. And it was this same issue as well that created a kind of lapses or obstacle for the APC to succeed, except when there was a democratic government. That was the time President Nkrumah started having a kind of negotiation. Is it going to be different with this current government?
This is the reality, Onoga. Remember, this present government has been accused by Guinean government of actually interfering into the governance of Guinea. We all know that, of which we saw news implicating the vice president. So it comes to integrity and moral standing. Who will actually confront the Guinean leader now to actually negotiate and to see how best we can actually repossess Yenga?
But we have the Minister of Foreign Affairs, right? Let me just give you a statement from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Timothy Kaba. Of course, he was in New York at that time. He urged residents of Kizi Teng to remain calm. This is according to exclusive newspaper. So, what do you make of the steps that these authorities are using? Of course, you have the ONS, you have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and other authorities in governance.
The only problem we are having now is this, is just to manage the situation. Guinea, even when Guinea was actually running under a democratic institutions, apparently they failed to hand over Yenga. They failed to demilitarize under this present regime. What we are saying is the fact. The fact remains that because Guinea is actually a junta-led governance, it is difficult for negotiation to work. The only thing that behoves Sierra Leone is to manage the situation, to make sure that our citizens there, our people, our Sierra Leonean people are protected and they are there living in peace.
Apart from negotiations, so Ibrahim, sorry, is there any other alternative? Is litigation also another possible solution for us to solve this issue?
My problem is this.
Really want war to
this is it. How can you litigate?
But what about litigation?
How can you litigate against a junta government? This is the problem I'm saying. Let me tell you.
So it seems very difficult at the moment.
It seems very difficult, my brother. Internationally,
we cannot take them to the ICC or
no. Well,
whatever.
ICC is for criminal cases.
Or even the other
ICJ.
ICJ, for instance.
You are just wasting your time taking a junta government to ICJ, of which the junta leader will just wake up one morning and say.
And I understand they have been suspended from ECOWAS.
So, this is what I'm saying. Regional bodies, these people are not actually respecting regional bodies. Regional bodies and other sub-regional bodies, they have already restricted Guinea. And to some extent,
very daunting for us.
For now, as it is difficult for Sierra Leone to actually repossess Yenga. The only thing is we'll manage the situation, make sure there is peace and there is calmness, make sure that the people, the residents of Yenga are well protected and they are living there in peace, doing their businesses. But when Guinea returns to a democratic governance, and there and then we'll see how best we can take further steps.
What is the possibility that they are going to return to a democratic government? Do you sense any prospect?
Well, Guinea is a signatory to many treaties and many regional bodies and international communities. And some of these international communities, they can adjudicate. They can use what we call tribunal settings, and they can also adjudicate whether by tribunals or whether by moral negotiations to see how best Guinea can see reason under a democratic governance to actually demilitarize the Yenga and make sure Sierra Leone repossess a Yenga. But now as it is very difficult, as I'm saying. But the only thing is, I want to assure the people of Sierra Leone that we have a strong military that is confident. We are not ready. We are not going into war. We are not violent, but we have a strong military, and I want to assure the residents of Yenga that they are safe, they are protected, nothing will happen with them, because Sierra Leone we are a respecter of law, and we have to go by diplomatic principles, because we are democratic government and we are subscriber of international treaties. So therefore, we must work within the principles of international jurisdictions. We must work within the principles of treaties, policies, and international directives. So let them be rest assured, let them be calm, and we have professional military officers. You know, they have been there and they have assessed the situations, but nothing will happen to them. I'm not sure there's going to be a spill of blood there.
Okay. No, let me come to you, Abdurrahman. I mean, this is very critical as we are discussing, and I think we are hitting on certain things here. Of course, the military government currently, one may say it's like a rebellious child. There is nowhere you can be able to hold them accountable, or nobody to really talk to them and that kind of thing, or control them. And this is the situation currently. Are we really going to succeed in terms of negotiation? And Ibrahim Sori is now saying here that there is no alternative. We cannot take litigation because, of course, currently the Guinean government, we have a military government. We cannot be able to really present a complaint at the moment. So the best solution is negotiation. Are you on the flip side?
I am not on the flip side.
Okay.
I'm not on the flip side. I think the delivery by...
Oh, you're sitting on the fence?
No, the delivery by my colleague is very much insightful.
Okay.
Calling for calm. But I dare say, let me use the words of the Chief of Staff, Office of National Security, Francis Languba Kelly. He did say, Yenga is a troubling reality. Yenga...
What does that mean?
Yenga is a troubling reality, based on the prevailing circumstances. The good thing is, we're sadly do, we're maintaining a garrison. That is, few of our military personnel are holding at Sukuba village, right? I would liken the situation...
But there was a shoot in the ear at Sukuba village,
yes,
even when we wanted to take over.
A scary gunshot.
Well, what does that mean?
I mean, scary gunshot was never a direct confrontation.
Okay.
Where you have a military from Sierra Leone and a military from Guinea, you know, open a direct...
It was not adversarial.
Or was it a threat?
It was a scary tactics to say, because they attempted to overrun Sukuba village and they met a stiffer resistance.
But this affected the residents.
It's affected because these are poor, innocent people who do not have the military skill, who do not have the military understanding. We need to commend our military for some amount of restraint. Otherwise, what we saw in the last few days would have been a direct confrontation, either in the form of a limited war that will escalate to a total war. And we are not ready for any eventuality.
So have we been very skillful so far?
Of course we've been.
Okay.
Sierra Leone Army, I must say this, have been tested. We fought against undisciplined rebels in Somalia. We succeeded. The Leone one. I am not here to sing praise the military.
Yeah.
But what we're saying here, we've entered into a combat mission in Somalia and Sudan, which is very much complex, far more complex than what we are facing now at Yenga. So for them to actually restrain, we have to give kudos to the chain of command at the Ministry of Defense and by extension Cochrane.
Okay.
So in this case, we're still exploring the diplomatic overture until we get it right. But for us to say, other people are saying, let's go into full-blown war, is never the case. Let me tell you something. I liken the situation at Yenga in the Eastern question. I guess you read European history from 6. It is a complex of conflicting interests, consequent upon the challenging situation with the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces that is now causing us this problem.
Okay.
For the past years, not in our current situation, for the past years, the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces has been underfunded. Not in this current situation. You don't expect me to sit here and tell you the readiness, the preparation, the confidence, the might that is now embedded within the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces. But I dare say, we cannot afford as a nation to go into a total war. We cannot afford as a nation, from our economic output, to go even into a limited war.
So what are the steps that we are supposed to take in negotiation?
Diplomatic overture, diplomacy. This will give us an answer.
All right, but let's look at the very fact of this story. Recent mapping and international boundary assessment, for example, this assessment has actually shown that Yenga lies within Sierra Leone territory. This is from an exclusive newspaper. So, at the heart of all of these, at the heart of all of these, why are we still not succeeding?
It's like
from the beginning, since 1994.
Yes, it's like Russia. Go back to your history. Russia is the only country that belongs to two continents, flanking in Europe, not in it. I dare say, perhaps, in the views of Guineans, Yenga is flanking in Guinea, but not in it.
Okay.
We are the real occupant of Yenga. If it is flanking in Guinea, but not in it, perhaps the only thing that separated us is the Makona River.
Okay.
And by way of de-escalating, I told you, I reiterated the fact that there was an African Union assessment team that visited that area. And still they are pursuing those diplomatic overtures to see how they can de-escalate that particular tension by getting a river, River Makona. Had it not been for the November 26 attempted coup, right? There was an agreement between the Guinean forces and the Sierra Leone army where they would have undertaken a kind of a joint exercise known as Makona, the Makona exercise, by way of monitoring our flanks, our jurisdiction in those two principalities.
Okay.
But with the outpost of this November 26, it spoils everything.
I'm afraid
we are all on the way. So let's explore diplomacy. We can't afford to go into war.
I'm sorry. What if it was a democratic government?
Yeah, then we have to go through more litigations. I mean, we have to go through lodging complaints to sub-regional bodies, regional bodies, and other international organizations, institutions that we are all part of, that we are subscribers of. Okay. So for now, it is very difficult because imagine Guinea has the right now to withdraw from ECOWAS, just as it happens in Burkina Faso, Mali, and other countries. Yeah. This is because they look at their sovereignty. They say we have the right to control our sovereignty. And remember now the constitution of Guinea is being suspended.
And so the Yenga is very relevant when it comes to military purpose.
Well, when you look at it, yes, of course, it's very strategic. You know, whenever you are actually sharing borders with certain country, you look at where it's very strategic to position your garrison or the necessary things. But the only thing is just a minute. But the only thing is when you look at Guinea, when you look at the demography, you know that Yenga belongs to Sierra Leone. So what Guinea is fighting for is annexation. While Sierra Leone is not fighting for annexation, Sierra Leone is fighting for repossession because it is already connected to our land. When you look at the entire geography and you look at how the demography is. But when you look at Guinea, you know that Guinea is trying to annex.
I'm afraid, gentlemen, let's take a break. We'll come back and continue with the conversation. This is Front Page, and we are discussing stories on the front pages of newspapers. I'm Emmanuel Nyakemomo. Stay connected. Back this second half of the program, and of course we are looking at stories on the front pages of newspapers. I am Emmanuel Nyakemomo, and in the studio I have Abdurrahman Kamara, among other things. He's a political, social analyst and a media expert. I also have Ibrahim Suri as well, a senior journalist as well in the program. Gentlemen, and a civil society activist. He's managing the Times newspaper.
No, the Minutes.
Is it the Minutes? The Minutes newspaper. I beg your pardon.
The Minutes and the
Minutes and Parameters. So you have two newspapers.
Yes, I have two newspapers.
All right, let's look at this very important story here. Of course, from our co, it's talking about vaccination. The Vice President shares Sierra Leone's vaccination success story. We have Vaccination Week. But at the heart of all this week, of course, you see the purpose of the program, it's about the country's significant strides in overcoming public health challenges. We already have this Mpox raising its ugly face. It appears as if the number is increasing every day, every step of the way. We've got more than 1,000. Yeah, that's why I said more than 1,000 cases already. And what are we doing to tackle this problem? And it's very hitching. especially through sexual intercourse, body contact, among others as well?
Well, we've got outbreak of,
Ebola
and
coronavirus.
All of these. But the mpox, in my view, is about the lack of adequate public knowledge.
Okay.
In terms of what constitutes the transmission precautions. For any disease outbreak, what we call infection prevention and control measures should be implemented at a One Health approach to break or blunt the chain of transmission. And this requires a continuous surveillance and over and above vaccination. With the mpox, the public knowledge that the Ministry of Health seemed to be undertaken when we got an appearance in our midst with the Ebola epidemic and the COVID-19 is much more lesser than what we used to see. So we taking it as a way of life.
Are we getting it right at the moment?
If we are getting it right, otherwise we shouldn't have seen an offshoot of mpox cases going more than 1,000, close to now to 2,000. So what we're saying, are we serious with our IPC measures? What are we doing as a nation to actually blunt the chain of transmission? What are we doing with vaccination? We receive a high dose of vaccinated doses. Are those being given to citizens or being implemented only?
I understand the vaccination is limited at the moment.
Well, for the frontline workers.
Is that why the virus is increasing? Because the vaccination is not increased at the moment. We just have a limited one, and a lot of people don't have the right to have the vaccination.
It's not a question of right. To me, this is my impression.
It's not accessible. That's what I mean.
It's my impression. I must tell you. You can challenge it. It's about transmission precaution. What we do not to come in contact with the virus. Public education.
So why is the vaccination not enough?
Is very slim. That question will be better answered by Dr. Debbie Austin Debbie. He's the Minister of Health. I'm not working for the Minister.
But I'm just saying what's your impression about that if we have a limited vaccination?
I until I rely on what they say to me.
What's your impression on that?
My impression is about the transmission precaution based on public knowledge. Not enough.
But if we have a limited vaccination now, don't you think this is very dangerous?
Dr. Dembi will better answer that particular question.
Okay.
Your insistence on wanting to get a clear answer for me, I dare say, go to the ministry when you want to talk about vaccination, get the right answer. But my impression, I remain absolutely consistent.
I just need your honest opinion.
Absolutely consistent with saying that the transmission precaution and public knowledge is much more lesser as we used to have in Ebola and COVID-19.
But let me come to you, Ibrahim Sori. Let me just give you some statistics here. Of course, the total number of confirmed cases as of yesterday and today, 1,387. Total active cases, 1,083. New cases, 9. New recoveries, 0 at the moment. Total recovered, 294, which is a good news. But then there is death here. We have 10 deaths already. So it means that the vaccine is limited. Is that not the reason? I mean, it's just a question.
Well, I think my brother made a very good submission where he spoke about preventions and awareness raising. Sometimes why some of the things are actually spread is the lack of civic education. How we can raise.
It's not the lack of limited vaccination because we already have 10. We'll come to the
technical aspect. Sometimes they are not readily available vaccines for some of these sicknesses. But
the health workers already have, and then I understand some government officials.
Yeah, but let's assume they are limited. The fact that they are limited, you need to increase the public education's awareness. So
but they should not be limited, Ibrahim. So this is emergency public health.
What we are saying is this: it should not be limited. But these are scientifically made vaccines. Okay? Sometimes they can be also limited where we purchase them from, But what we are saying is this: if we are caught in a circumstances where we have limited equipment, to combat this particular disease, you must embark on what we call the public education, as my brother was saying, because that is more important. Remember this.
So the public education and vaccination, what takes priority?
It spreads like wildfire. Do you know that this thing? Do you know how it spreads? Right. Exactly. So therefore, you need to embark on precautionary measures, which is public education, whilst you are making available the vaccines for those who will be affected.
But we already have public education already. Of course, for instance, we have the results.
It is not
always
enough.
Published.
It is not enough. It is
Give
not
us an
adequate.
update on what is happening.
Do you know my mother in Kubola may not be seeing this thing? My mother in Kubola may not be seeing this thing. Not everyone has access to WhatsApp.
But the Public Health Emergency
Internet.
Agency has been also sharing some messages.
It's only on internet. You cannot. Let me tell you, they are traditional means.
But it's also on radio.
And you have the responsibility to recruit more people so they can reach to these hard to reach areas where we have family members who do not have access to radio, who do not have access to internet and all the social media.
Can you just have your bite before you
so
is it the public education or the vaccination?
I think
Which one takes priority here?
Bothering yourself much on vaccination. Even without vaccination, when you isolate the virus through public education by way of transmission precaution, you'll be much safer. I repeat, transmission precaution, even without vaccination, with public education on the need for transmission precaution, you'll be very
So how can we get it right when it comes to public education?
Let's explore the traditional measures. The efforts we placed in Ebola and COVID-19 have never been placed with the Mpox.
Do we have social mobilization in this?
Now, what we are seeing as death cases is perhaps, you talk to health workers, they will tell you it's as a result of those with immunocompromise. Even with those COVID, Ebola 19, when you have those immunocompromised, you come with opportunistic infection. And no magic could be played. You'll have to die. But with precaution transmission, public education use the traditional means, loudspeakers to isolate the virus, even without vaccination. I'm not a health specialist.
So where are we missing
my
it?
association,
Where are we missing it in the public education?
Health workers have only a lot of understanding to say a transmission precaution will isolate the virus and we'll get it right with public education.
So how can we get it right with public education? For instance, I understand when we had Ebola, of course, there was what we call community mobilization.
No. We can get it. We can get it right when you make people to understand how the transmission is taking place. It's what people should do, what they should avoid. I'm coming in. What we are saying, it is not that it has not been done, but it has not been adequately done. These things you have to approach them with the effective and efficient strategy that you can use. Sometimes they cannot be eradicated, but it can be drastically minimized to an extent that it can be isolated. So what we are saying is the reality is that maybe when some of the things are coming, sometimes we ask ourselves, probably we have not learned from the Ebola and the Corona outbreak.
But we already have...
Because it was lack of adequate public education that actually led a spiral.
And the
capacity of the
gentlemen,
by not much of
death. I keep thinking about this. Yeah. Now we already have a whole commission called Public Health Agency, for instance. Is it an agency or commission that is responsible to promote public health?
Yeah, well,
at the heart of all of these, we are still struggling.
Well, then they just need probably they don't have the probably they are struggling with capacities, thinking about support and all other things. They need to just support them, give them the capacity to actually reach out. Secondly,
are they potent or impotent?
No, we cannot say they are impotent.
Okay.
Because they are effective and efficient in their own administrative role, they may be potent. But what we are saying, to actually implement some of their strategies, developing the policies in the room is different from implementing them in the field.
Is the impact from that agency?
Exactly. But what I'm saying here is, get public jingles, get public messages. You understand? On transmission precaution. Share all of these in the news outlets. Don't be selective. Each and every media has its own conservative audience. Each and every media has its conservative listeners. Yeah. The purpose here is objective is for people to stay safe. But when you confine these messages just to few,
do you know, let me tell you one thing.
Is there a role that the...
How will you get it right?
Is there a role...
I want to give you...
Let me just make this point. Is there a role that the Ministry of Civic Education, for instance, can play in all of these? Now we see the Ministry of Civic Education, instead of educating the people about the virus, we see them engaging in civic day programs.
Yes, they are all over the place.
Is that a misplaced priority?
They are all over the place conducting quiz and debate.
What I want you to know.
But the point here is, how can you help as a Ministry of Information?
Because
how can you give supportive collaboration with the Ministry of Health on public education? You are the specialist in the public education. Help them. Let them give you the required messages, and you cascade all of these messages to this.
Ibrahim, sorry, quickly.
The aim is just to hold public.
Quickly, as we round up.
Yes, you are saying is one of the primary mandates of the Ministry of Information is to actually disseminate information, to actually communicate with the people of Sierra Leone as to what is happening, what is about to happen, what has been done, and all XYZ. And you know, we have the Civic Commission where Tutangi was actually heading. You can also collaborate with this.
But
and
they
you
are
also
currently in the provinces.
I'm coming.
They are currently in the provinces.
I'm coming. Forget about what we are saying in the provinces. Sometimes they don't even reach to hard-to-reach areas. Let me give you one case study. One singular case that I will mention, which can actually help you to understand why public education is very important. Somebody got ill, and then which was mpox, and then they were relating it to these traditional sicknesses, that he has been shot by witch gun. They don't fire with witch gun. By the time they knew it, 6-7 people around him got affected.
So what should be done by the...
There they realized that it was mpox.
What do you think should be done by the Ministry of Civic Education in terms of really tackling this
supportive
virus?
collaboration.
No, but as my brother is saying, you have to collaborate with other line departments, with other line institutions, so you can actually take the message, so the message can reach to people out there that if you see mpox, don't misunderstand it to be witch gun, don't misunderstand it to be alley. You know, because this is the problem. Imagine somebody went to a village, an interior village, where they said, they don't fire with witch gun. All those people, including, they said, the Morema Sefo be the mena, got affected with mpox.
So are you saying that the Civic Day program currently by the Ministry of Information is not timely?
No, no one is saying it's not timely. We are talking about effectiveness and efficiency. We are talking about collaborations. We are talking about supportive attitude. No one is criticizing their efforts, but we are just trying to see how we can urge them to up their game, to be supportive, to be collaborative, to be effective, to be efficient. Yes. These are the things that we are actually talking about.
All right, gentlemen,
exactly. You have to scale your preference.
I'm afraid we can have that discussion the other day. Well, this is how we end this edition of Front Page. Many thanks to you, Abdurrahman, and of course, Ibrahim Sori, for your salient contributions to the program. It has been a fruitful conversation. I've been your host, Emmanuel Nyakemomo. Thanks for watching us and also listening to us via AYV Radio.